General Motors has been behind some of the most iconic, daring, and trend-setting vehicles in American automotive history. From world-beating performance machines to stylish cruisers and revolutionary innovations, GM's portfolio goes way beyond just volume and value. These 8 cars represent the coolest creations ever to roll out of GM's factories, vehicles that turned heads, changed the game, or became instant legends.
Dear viewer, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support.
Number 8. The 1987 Buick GNX Grand National Experimental wasn't just a muscle car. It was a send-off, a mic drop moment from Buick as the sun set on rear-wheel drive American performance sedans of the 1980s. Nicknamed the Darth Vader car, the GNX was sinister in both appearance and intent. With a turbocharged V6 under the hood that could outrun Corvettes of its era, it embodied Buick's last moment of raw, unapologetic speed. Limited to just 547 units, the GNX wasn't merely a trim level. It was a legend forged in black paint, torque, and turbo boost. Historical context: Buick's strange path to performance. By the early 1980s, Buick was a brand best known for luxury sedans and comfortable cruisers, not for blistering quarter-mile runs. But in a fuel-conscious world, the traditional muscle car formula of massive V8s was fading fast. So Buick engineers went a different route. They took the 3.8-liter V6 engine in the Regal and added a turbocharger. What began as a mild performance experiment with the Regal Sport Coupe evolved quickly. The 1984 to 1987 Grand National models grew meaner each year. By 1986, the intercooled turbo setup was pushing performance into Corvette territory. But the GNX was the final form, the ultimate evolution. Engineering and performance. No V8, no problem. While most muscle cars clung to their V8s, the GNX dared to do something radically different. Under the hood was a specially tuned version of Buick's 3.8-liter turbocharged V6, developed in collaboration with McLaren engines, yes, that McLaren, and ASC, American Sunroof Corporation. Key upgrades included a larger Garrett T3 turbocharger, a more efficient intercooler with ceramic impeller, reinforced engine internals and better lubrication, reprogrammed ECU and transmission. Official factory numbers were 276 horsepower and 360 pound-foot of torque, but this was a classic GM understatement. Real-world tests clocked the GNX at 0 to 60 miles per hour in 4.6 seconds and a quarter mile in 13.4 seconds, times that embarrassed not only the Corvette but also Porsches and Ferraris of the day. Torque hit like a sledgehammer, peaking at just 2,000 RPM. The GNX launched like a missile with minimal drama. No screaming engine, no high-rev theatrics, just brutal, efficient, turbocharged violence. The GNX looked like it came out of a science fiction dystopia. Painted exclusively in glossy black, the car had no flashy badging or bright work, just blacked-out trim, fender flares, and functional fender vents for heat extraction. It sat on 16-inch mesh-style wheels wrapped in beefy Goodyear Gatorback tires. Inside, it retained the basic layout of the Regal Grand National, but featured special Stewart Warner analog gauges, a GNX plaque, and modest updates. It was austere, purposeful, and intimidating, fitting for a machine more concerned with performance than pampering. The GNX didn't live long, only one model year and only 547 units produced. But in that short time, it became one of the most revered and collectible American cars of the 1980s. It signaled the end of an era, the last rear-wheel drive performance car from Buick, and arguably the last true American muscle car before the front-wheel drive, emissions-controlled 1990s took over. In a way, the GNX was too good. It outperformed the Corvette at a lower price, and that didn't sit well inside GM. While officially the GNX program ended due to cost and limited market, many believe internal politics played a role in cutting it short. Buick had built a Corvette killer, and GM wasn't ready for that. The 1987 Buick GNX remains one of the most surprising, brutal, and beloved cars in American performance history. It wasn't loud or flamboyant, it didn't need to be. It was quick, dark, and devastating, like a villain in a tuxedo. With turbocharged thrust, a blacked-out body, and limited production mystique, the GNX has more than earned its nickname. Number 7. The 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Ritz isn't just a car, it's a monument. A glittering, unapologetic expression of post-war American extravagance, tail fins and all. For decades, this car has stood as a symbol of both Cadillac's ambition and Detroit's boldness. But while it's admired for its wild styling, it also raises essential questions about the line between design brilliance and excess. Let's examine why the '59 Ritz became legendary and why it marked both a peak and turning point in American automotive design. In 1959, GM's design studios went all in on the futuristic jet-age styling craze. Harley Earl's influence still echoed through Cadillac's designs, even though he'd retired the previous year. The result? The most outrageous tail fins ever put on a production car. Towering, sharp, and capped with dual bullet-style taillights. The Eldorado Ritz convertible was Cadillac's halo vehicle, dripping in chrome, with a wide egg crate grille, sculpted body panels, and sweeping side moldings. It looked less like a car and more like a science fiction rocket ship designed to cruise down Sunset Boulevard. This wasn't subtle. It was Cadillac telling the world, this is the most American thing we've ever built. At nearly 19 feet long and almost 80 inches wide, the Eldorado Ritz wasn't a car made for tight city corners or suburban garages. It was enormous, intentionally so, reflecting a national confidence and oil glut that wouldn't last into the 1970s. Its massive dimensions housed lavish features: power everything, windows, seats, top, optional air suspension, and acres of soft leather. Cadillac wasn't competing with other cars, it was competing with the idea of a luxury yacht on land. Under the hood sat a 390 cubic inch V8 pushing out 345 horsepower. Paired with a 4-speed Hydra-Matic automatic transmission, it wasn't fast by muscle car standards, but it delivered smooth, effortless cruising, exactly what Cadillac's upper-crust buyers wanted. The car floated more than it drove, with soft suspension tuned for comfort over handling. Speed wasn't the point. Style and serenity were. 4. Cost and exclusivity. The 1959 Eldorado Ritz was Cadillac's most expensive model, with a base price around $7,400, about 3 times the cost of a basic Chevrolet. That made it a true status symbol. Fewer than 1,500 units were built, giving it immediate exclusivity. Every detail screamed wealth, from the real chrome trim to the padded dash and tailored interior. It was less about transportation and more about arrival. Despite its iconic look, the 1959 Ritz also marked the moment when tail fin mania peaked and collapsed. Critics, designers, and buyers alike began questioning the point of ever taller fins and increasing visual clutter. By 1960, Cadillac had already begun toning things down, and by 1961, the fins were lower, the lines cleaner. The industry shifted towards subtler luxury, and the Ritz suddenly looked like a relic from a more excessive time. Beautiful, but dated. Today, the 1959 Eldorado Ritz is among the most collectible and admired American cars of the 1950s. It symbolizes the optimism and brashness of the era, and while it may have been excessive, it was also unapologetically bold. It wasn't just a car, it was an era on wheels. A time capsule of America's dreams, indulgence, and unshakable confidence.
The 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz is where style over substance became art. It dared to push design to its absolute limit, and while some saw that as overkill, others saw it as a masterpiece. In the end, it's remembered not for how it drove, but how it looked, felt, and symbolized the American spirit at full throttle.
Number 6. In the golden age of muscle cars, brute force often reigned supreme. Big blocks ruled the streets, and displacement was king. But then came the 1969 Chevrolet Camaro Z28, a car built not just for quarter-mile glory, but for road racing dominance. Conceived as Chevrolet's answer to the SCCA Trans Am racing series, the Z28 was the epitome of small block performance with race-bred engineering, and it became a legend in its own right. The Z28 was born out of Chevrolet's desire to compete in the Sports Car Club of America's Trans-American Sedan Championship. The rules capped engine displacement at 305 cubic inches, 5.0 liters, making big blocks ineligible. Chevrolet responded with a performance package centered around a high-winding 302 cubic inch V8, a hybrid built from a 327 block and a 283 crankshaft. First offered in 1967, the Z28 was a slow seller initially, but by 1969, thanks to racing success, sharper design, and better promotion, it had become the performance enthusiast's dream. The 1960 model year was a peak for the first-generation Camaro styling. It featured a more aggressive, chiseled front end with deeply inset headlights, optional cowl induction hood, and wide, muscular stance. Z28s came with subtle Z28 badges, racing stripes, and 15-inch rally wheels. It looked tough, but not over the top, which only added to its appeal. Inside, it was basic muscle, bucket seats, no frills. Buyers interested in lightweight speed didn't need luxury, they needed function. Engine and performance, the screaming 302. The heart of the Z28 was its high-compression, solid-lifter 302 V8. Officially rated at 290 horsepower, real output was closer to 360-plus horsepower, especially in higher RPMs. This engine was designed to rev beyond 7,000 RPM, a rare trait among American V8s at the time. Paired with a mandatory Muncie 4-speed manual and optional 410 rear gears, the Z28 was a screamer. It wasn't a drag strip monster, but rather a corner-carving high-speed menace, quick off the line and ferocious on a track. 0 to 60 miles per hour came in about 6.9 seconds, and the quarter mile in the high 14s. Impressive for a small block street car. Unlike many muscle cars that prioritized straight-line speed, the Z28 was engineered to turn. The package included stiffer suspension, heavy-duty springs, front disc brakes, and quick ratio steering. The result was a car that handled exceptionally well for its era, and one of the few American cars that could credibly battle European sports cars in the corners. The 1969 Z28 was a high point in first-generation Camaro history. Over 20,000 were built, a massive jump from previous years. It gave Chevrolet street cred in the road racing world and demonstrated that performance didn't need to come from massive displacement. Its influence extended well beyond 1969. The Z28 badge would return on future Camaros, but purists agree that none captured the same raw, motorsport-bred purity as the original 302-powered version. The 1969 Chevrolet Camaro Z28 was more than a muscle car. It was a precision tool wrapped in muscle car skin. Built to win races, but perfectly suited for the street, the Z28 was Chevy's declaration that finesse could defeat brute strength. And decades later, its legend still roars at full volume. Number 5. By the mid-1990s, American performance cars were in a strange place. The muscle car era was long over, the Mustang GT was holding on, and SUVs were gaining ground. Yet amidst this, Chevrolet did something bold. In 1994, it introduced the Impala SS, a menacing, full-size sleeper that brought muscle car attitude back into the family sedan. By 1996, in its final year, the Impala SS had become an icon, quietly aggressive and brutally effective. The Impala SS of the 90s wasn't an all-new car. It was based on the full-size, rear-wheel-drive Chevrolet Caprice, the same car used for police cruisers and taxis. But Chevrolet's engineers, led by John Moss of GM's Special Vehicle Group, saw an opportunity. Take the heavy-duty underpinnings of the Caprice, drop in a high-performance V8, and turn the mundane into something extraordinary. At its core, the 1996 Impala SS packed the 5.7-liter LT1 V8, borrowed from the Corvette, albeit detuned slightly for sedan duty. It was rated at 260 horsepower and 330 pound-feet of torque. That may sound tame by today's standards, but in the 90s, it was a beast, especially in a full-size, four-door body. The engine gave the car impressive straight-line performance. It could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per second in about 6.5 seconds, nearly matching the performance of the Mustang GT at the time. Power was routed through a 4-speed automatic transmission and sent to the rear wheels via a limited-slip differential. This was no soft cruiser. It had serious grunt. One of the most striking aspects of the 1996 Impala SS was how understated it was. There was no wild spoiler, no flashy graphics. It wore a monochromatic paint scheme, most famously in black, body-colored bumpers, and minimal chrome. The only real giveaways were the slightly lowered ride height, the unique 17-inch aluminum wheels, and the Impala SS script on the rear quarter panels, subtly embossed in the sheet metal. Its stance was aggressive, its presence intimidating. It earned the nickname the Darth Vader sedan for good reason. Inside, the Impala SS was still a full-size sedan. You got a front bench seat standard, though buckets were optional with a center console. The 1996 model added a digital speedometer, analog gauges, and optional leather upholstery. The interior wasn't luxurious by modern standards, but it was comfortable and functional, more Buick than Camaro, but with attitude. The only real downside was the column-mounted shifter, a reminder of the car's Caprice heritage. Thanks to its police-grade suspension and beefed-up components, the Impala SS could handle itself well for a full-size sedan. It wasn't a corner carver, but it had good body control, solid braking, and confident highway stability. With sport-tuned shocks, larger sway bars, and performance tires, it was more than just a drag strip brute. It could hustle through curves with poise. The ride was firm but composed, blending comfort and control. The 1996 model year marked the end of the B-body platform. GM shut down the Arlington, Texas plant that built the Caprice and Impala to make room for SUV production, a sign of the times. Chevrolet sold just over 69,000 Impala SS models during its 3-year run, 1994 to 1996. The 1996 version was arguably the most refined, with a new floor shifter and analog gauges, making it the most desirable of the lot among collectors today. The Impala SS of the 1990s holds a special place in automotive history. It proved that performance didn't have to come in a 2-door coupe. It blended raw V8 power, full-size comfort, and sinister style into one unforgettable package. While GM would revive the SS badge later, most notably with the Australian-built Chevrolet SS in the 2010s, the 1994 to 1996 stands as a true original, a throwback to muscle-era values with a modern, for its time, twist. It was the muscle car that wore a tuxedo, the velvet hammer of the 90s. For enthusiasts, the 1996 Impala SS remains a cult classic. It was subtle, powerful, and unassuming, a rare combination in any era. As modern performance sedans grow more complex and tech-heavy, the Impala SS reminds us of a simpler formula: big V8, rear-wheel drive, and attitude. Number 4. The 1961 Chevrolet Impala SS409 is more than just a car, it's a cultural landmark. Immortalized in song and revered on the drag strip, it symbolized the moment when big American coupes stopped being just transportation and started becoming icons of speed. It combined style, size, and a monstrous V8 engine that set the tone for the muscle car movement that followed. The Super Sport SS debuted in 1961 as a performance and appearance package. While it would eventually appear on everything from Camaros to Novas, its origins lie with the full-size Impala. Chevrolet saw the rising interest in performance among younger buyers and responded with the SS trim, a combination of suspension upgrades, better brakes, and exclusive badging. But in 1961, if you checked the right boxes, your SS could come with something special under the hood, the now legendary 409 cubic inch V8. Developed from the 348 cubic inch W Series V8, the 409 was engineered for torque and high revving horsepower. With a single 4-barrel carburetor, it made 360 horsepower and an enormous 409 pound-feet of torque, astounding figures for the early 1960s. Its beefy bottom end and solid lifter cam gave it performance that shocked competitors. It wasn't just a boulevard cruiser. The 409 Impala could dominate quarter miles and street races alike. And of course, it inspired the Beach Boys' hit song 409, turning it into a pop culture symbol that made teenagers dream of fast Chevys and open roads. The 1961 Impala wore its power well. With a clean, restrained redesign that year, it featured a semi-fastback roofline, triple taillights, and subtle SS badging. Unlike later muscle cars with stripes and scoops, the Impala SS409 looked classy, almost conservative, but that made its explosive performance even more surprising. Inside, bucket seats and a console-mounted shifter gave it a sporty vibe, while the rest of the cabin retained the plushness expected of a full-size Chevy. Performance and racing impact. Though heavy compared to later muscle cars, the 409 Impala could run the quarter mile in the low 14-second range, making it a serious contender in NHRA super stock racing. It became a favorite for drag racers who wanted raw power with reliability, especially when mated to the available 4-speed manual transmission. Its dominance was short-lived, however. By 1962, Ford and Mopar had their own big block monsters in the works, and the horsepower race began escalating quickly. But for a brief window, the Impala SS409 was king. Legacy and influence. The 409 started a revolution. It proved that full-size cars could be fast, stylish, and culturally resonant all at once. While muscle cars would later shift to smaller, mid-size platforms like the GTO and Chevelle SS, the 409-era Impala laid the groundwork. Today, the 1961 Impala SS409 is a sought-after collector's item, with original examples fetching 6 figures. Its rarity, only about 142 were built with the 409 engine that year, making it one of the crown jewels of early 60s American performance. The 1961 Chevrolet Impala SS409 was more than just a car. It was a statement of intent from Chevrolet, a wake-up call to competitors, and a symbol of American muscle before the muscle car era had even begun. Elegant, thunderous, and unforgettable, the 409 still echoes in car culture today, in garage posters, drag strip memories, and the lyrics of a song that captured the roar of a V8 for an entire generation. Key takeaways. First year for Chevrolet's SS Super Sport designation. Introduced the 409 V8 with 360 horsepower and high torque. Inspired the Beach Boys' 1962 hit 409. Extremely rare, fewer than 150 made with the 409 engine in '61. Kickstarted the full-size muscle movement and helped shape American performance culture. Number 3. In 1984, General Motors unveiled a daring departure from its traditional approach to affordable cars, the Pontiac Fiero. It was the first mid-engine production car ever offered by an American automaker, a radical move aimed at injecting European-style flair into the budget segment. But it was the special edition Indy pace car version that truly captured imaginations. Combining futuristic styling with motorsport prestige, it promised a new era of accessible performance, even if the reality didn't quite live up to the hype. Pontiac was struggling to define its identity in the early 1980s. Once known for its muscular GTOs and Firebirds, the brand needed something fresh to appeal to younger, performance-hungry buyers, all while meeting the new fuel efficiency standards and tight corporate budgets. The result was the Pontiac Fiero, a sleek two-seater coupe with a mid-engine layout. A first for GM and something unheard of in the American market at the time. The Fiero's Indy Pace Car Edition was released in the model's debut year as part of the car's official selection to pace the 1984 Indianapolis 500, a prestigious endorsement that GM used to full effect in marketing. The 1984 Fiero Indy Pace Car stood out with aggressive styling for its class. Aero body kit with unique front and rear fascia, bold white paint with red and gray graphics, functional-looking air inlets and spoiler, special 16-inch wheels, Indy 500 decals and badging, reminding you this wasn't just another commuter car. Inside, it had two-tone leather-trimmed bucket seats with Indy Fiero embroidery and a leather-wrapped steering wheel. Visually, the car looked like a miniature Ferrari or Lotus, with sharp, wedge-like proportions and rear sail panel glass. Despite its exotic layout and racy looks, the 1984 Fiero was powered by a rather pedestrian engine. 2.5-liter Iron Duke inline-4, producing just 92 horsepower, paired with either a 3-speed automatic or a 4-speed manual transmission. Although the car handled well thanks to its low center of gravity and weight distribution, straight-line performance was underwhelming. 0 to 60 miles per hour took nearly 10 seconds, and critics were quick to point out the mismatch between appearance and capability. Still, the mid-engine layout, space frame construction, and plastic body panels were revolutionary for GM. The engineering under the skin was more advanced than the engine itself suggested. The actual pace car that led the field at the 1984 Indianapolis 500 was not the same as the showroom model. The real deal was fitted with a 232-horse, turbocharged version of the 2.7-liter V6 used in the Pontiac 6000, custom-built for pace car duty. It was fast, capable, and track-ready, but it never made it to production. Dealerships got a more cosmetic version. About 2,000 replica Indy pace cars were built. Most were sold to collectors and enthusiasts who were intrigued by the Fiero's unusual layout and futuristic looks. Though the 1984 Fiero Indy pace car didn't deliver sports car performance, it made a lasting impact. It was a styling icon for the mid-80s and brought mid-engine thinking to the US market. The Fiero eventually evolved, with a V6 engine and suspension improvements by 1988, but it was too late. Today, the Indy pace car editions are collector's items, thanks to their rarity and unique place in GM history. The Fiero paved the way, at least philosophically, for future mid-engine ideas, culminating decades later in the C8 Corvette. The 1984 Pontiac Fiero Indy pace car was a fascinating experiment, part marketing stunt, part motorsport homage, part engineering curiosity. While it didn't deliver on all its performance promises, it dared to challenge the American norm and brought a little bit of European flair to the streets, at an affordable price. It remains one of the most distinctive oddities of 1980s GM and a time capsule of the era's bold automotive ambitions. Number 2. In the waning days of the original muscle car era, when rising insurance costs and tightening emissions regulations were beginning to strangle high-performance machines, Oldsmobile delivered one final shout of defiance, the 1973 Hurst Olds. Created in collaboration with the legendary George Hurst's company, this special edition Muscle Lux coupe merged Oldsmobile's refined styling with legitimate street performance and a striking visual identity. The Hurst Olds program had been around since the late 1960s, offering special edition Oldsmobiles with enhanced performance and exclusive features, often better than what GM officially allowed its own divisions to produce. These cars were especially important to Oldsmobile, which was known more for comfort and engineering than raw muscle. Hurst, on the other hand, was a performance-focused brand, best known for its shifters. Their collaboration allowed Oldsmobile to bypass GM's internal restrictions, particularly the corporate ban on big block engines in intermediate cars. By 1973, the Hurst Olds was no longer just a speed machine, it had to be a statement. The 1973 model, bold design. The 73 Hurst Olds was based on the redesigned Cutlass S Colonnade Coupe, a car that debuted GM's new safety body with fixed B-pillars, wraparound rear glass, and a heavier frame. While these new safety-focused Colonnade bodies were criticized by purists for their added weight and bulk, Oldsmobile leaned into the design and gave the Hurst Olds a muscular, aggressive look. Available in black with gold stripes or white with gold stripes, a nod to Hurst's iconic color scheme. Striking gold and black hood stripes with a functional hood scoop on W30 cars. A urethane front fascia with a more aggressive grille and custom badging. Exclusive Hurst Olds emblems, body-colored sport mirrors, and gold pinstriping. Special 15-inch Superstock 3 wheels dressed in white leather tires. Performance and drivetrain. The 1973 Hurst Olds came in two performance variants. W25. Powered by a 455 cubic inch rocket V8 rated at 250 net horsepower. Matched with an automatic transmission and highway-friendly gearing. W30. Also powered by a 455 rocket V8, but with better breathing heads, higher compression, and a hotter camshaft. Produced 270 net horsepower and was fitted with a more aggressive axle ratio for quicker launches. Came standard with the famous Hurst dual-gate shifter, a trick automatic shifter that allowed either standard drive mode or manual gear selection. While the horsepower ratings seem modest today, thanks to the switch to net horsepower figures in 1972, the W30 cars were still brutally torquey and capable of 14-second quarter miles in the right hands, impressive for a 4,000-pound luxury coupe. Luxury muscle. What set the 1973 Hurst Olds apart wasn't just speed. It was the blend of comfort and performance. Standard features included plush Strato bucket seats with optional swivel mechanisms, full instrumentation, a sport steering wheel and faux wood grain trim, optional 8-track player and power accessories, unique Hurst Olds badging and touches throughout the cabin. This was a car for the enthusiast who wanted power without sacrificing air conditioning, a plush ride, or GM's smooth automatic transmission. Production and rarity. Oldsmobile built just 1,097 Hurst Olds cars in 1973, split between the W25 and W30 variants. These numbers were limited by design. GM never intended to mass-produce the car. Instead, it was a high-visibility image car used to maintain the performance reputation of the brand as regulations and consumer tastes began shifting away from muscle. Cultural footprint and decline of the era. The 1973 Hurst Olds also served as the official pace car of the Indianapolis 500, helping Oldsmobile capitalize on motorsport prestige during a challenging time for performance cars. But this was also the year of the first oil crisis and growing emissions controls. Muscle cars were on life support. The 1973 Hurst Olds, then, was a time capsule, a bold attempt to blend muscle car swagger with luxury car comfort at the very moment the market was collapsing. It stood at the crossroads of two eras, the last stand of Detroit performance before the Malaise era took over. The 1973 Oldsmobile Hurst Olds wasn't just a muscle car, it was a muscle experience. With a thundering 455 V8, flashy Hurst branding, and luxurious appointments, it gave buyers one last taste of Oldsmobile performance grandeur. Today, it stands as one of the most unique expressions of early 70s design, a rolling monument to power, prestige, and excess, just before it all faded. For collectors, it's a rare gem. For enthusiasts, it's a reminder that even in decline, muscle could still roar, with gold stripes and a dual-gate shifter to prove it. Number 1. In the pantheon of 1980s American performance cars, few names stir as much nostalgia and excitement as the 1985 Chevrolet Camaro iRock Z. Emerging during a period of automotive identity crisis when muscle cars were being neutered by emissions restrictions and rising insurance costs, the iRock Z didn't just revive the Camaro's performance credentials, it defined an entire decade's aesthetic of speed, flash, and factory muscle. The iRock Z name stood for International Race of Champions, a motorsports event where identical cars were driven by top racers from various disciplines. In 1985, Chevrolet capitalized on its sponsorship by introducing a performance-oriented Camaro trim named after the event, a genius marketing move that instantly made the car synonymous with racing pedigree and factory performance. Under the hood, the 85 iRock Z was offered with several engines, but the top dog was the 5.0-liter 305 Ci V8 with tuned port injection, TPI, the same basic power plant found in the Corvette. It was rated at 215 horsepower, a respectable figure for the era and a clear upgrade over most competitors. Tuned port injection was a technological leap, giving the Camaro more torque and responsiveness compared to traditional carbureted setups. 0 to 60 miles per hour times were in the high 6-second range, with quarter-mile times in the low 15s, fast enough to dominate high school parking lots and streetlight drag races. The iRock Z also came standard with a performance suspension package, lowered ride height, stiffer springs, sway bars, 16-inch alloy wheels wrapped in Goodyear Gatorback tires, and a limited slip differential. This wasn't just cosmetic muscle, it handled. What really made the iRock Z a standout was its styling. It embraced the full 80s design ethos, bold, angular, and dripping with attitude. Body-colored ground effects and spoilers, iRock Z decals down the doors, a slanted front fascia with a blacked-out grille and fog lights, optional T-tops giving it open-air flair. This Camaro wasn't just a car, it was a statement. It looked like it should be on a Van Halen album cover or in a Miami Vice car chase. The 1985 iRock Z instantly became a pop culture icon, regularly appearing in TV shows, movies, and music videos. It became shorthand for cool, aggressive, youthful energy, even if it occasionally veered into the world of cliches. It was the car of choice for street racers, show-offs, and suburban daredevils. Its reputation was only bolstered by its accessibility, cheaper than a Corvette but with serious street cred. This cultural saturation ensured that even today, the iRock Z remains one of the most recognizable and beloved Camaros ever made. Despite its strengths, the 1985 iRock Z wasn't perfect. The interior was still very much 1980s GM, plasticky and prone to squeaks. Build quality was hit or miss. The 4-speed automatic transmission sapped some of the car's raw potential. The 5-speed manual helped considerably. But none of that truly mattered to its target audience. It had style, sound, and speed. The 1985 iRock Z helped resurrect the muscle car in the public's imagination. It proved that performance wasn't dead, it had just gone through an awkward phase. It brought Camaro back to prominence and paved the way for the even faster, more refined models of the early 1990s. Today, clean examples of the '85 iRock Z are sought after by collectors and Gen X enthusiasts who remember when this was the baddest car on the block. The 1985 Chevrolet Camaro iRock Z wasn't just a car, it was a cultural milestone. With cutting-edge technology for the time, head-turning design, and legit performance, it became the ultimate 80s muscle icon. It was loud, brash, and proudly American. A poster car for a generation who grew up on V8 dreams and Van Halen guitar solos.